Under infrared, a corral trap at night reads as a ring of pale metal in a field of green and gray, and inside it, more than a dozen wild hogs are feeding on scattered corn. 3 months before a night like this one, on June 3, 2026, a laboratory confirmed something in a 3-week-old beef calf near Pryor in Zavala County, Texas, that this country had not dealt with in almost 60 years. New World Screwworm. But the reason that trap costs $10,000 is not the calf, and it is not the corn. In daylight, the same kind of setup looks almost ordinary. A round steel trap standing in cut brush, a feed pile in the middle, and a small weatherproof camera mounted on a post at the edge of it, pointed at the bait. Zavala County sits about 50 miles from the Mexico border in the same South Texas country where white-tailed deer, exotic game animals, and feral hogs live in overlapping abundance. The Texas Farm Bureau laid the concern out directly. All 3 of those animals can host a screwworm infestation, and if the parasite gains a foothold in wildlife, feral hogs included, eradication becomes exponentially harder. There are an estimated 6 million feral swine in the United States, ranging across at least 35 states. That is the reason a metal ring in a dark field is worth $10,000, and the reason a person's phone decides when the gate drops. The rest of this is the explanation. New World Screwworm is not a worm. Cochleomya hominivirax is a parasitic fly, and the female lays her eggs at the edge of an open wound on a living, warm-blooded animal. What hatches does not feed on dead tissue the way most maggots do. The larvae burrow into living flesh. The wound widens as they feed, and the animal carrying them gets worse rather than better. Livestock, wildlife, pets, and people can all be infested. The United States pushed this fly out of the country decades ago, and for nearly 60 years, an open wound on an American ranch did not carry that particular risk. That ended this summer. The calf near Pryor received laboratory confirmation on June 3, 2026. By July 3, 1 month later, 32 known cases had been recorded in the United States. The federal and state response leaned on the same method that achieved the original eradication, which is the release of sterile screwworm flies over the affected area so that wild females mate and produce nothing viable. In June of 2026, Governor Greg Abbott pledged state assistance to accelerate construction of a dedicated sterile fly production facility in Texas. The logic of that method is worth understanding because everything that follows depends on it. Screwworm control works by flooding the country with sterile flies, released in numbers large enough that a wild female is far more likely to mate with a sterile male than a fertile one. She mates, she lays, nothing hatches, and the local population collapses over successive generations. It is slow, it is expensive, and it worked well enough to clear an entire continent's worth of livestock the first time around. It also has a condition attached to it, and the condition is the whole story. Sterile releases suppress the flies, but the animals still have to be managed underneath them, and that means the infested ones have to be found and treated before the wound becomes a nursery for the next generation. Ranch animals get counted, penned, inspected, and treated. A rancher walks a herd, finds a wound, treats the wound, reports the case, and the outbreak stays measurable. Every one of those steps assumes somebody can put hands on the animal, which raises the obvious question about the animals nobody can put hands on. This is not a hypothetical pairing invented for a video. In Uruguay, New World Screwworm myiasis has been documented in feral swine and examined in the peer-reviewed literature as a One Health and transboundary animal disease concern. Wild pigs there carried the parasite, and researchers wrote it up specifically because a wild pig population is the kind of reservoir that crosses borders and outlasts control programs. Nothing in that record confirms the parasite in an American feral hog. As of this writing, it has not been found in one. What the record shows is that wild pigs have carried this parasite before in another country in the published literature, which is why officials in Texas are naming the animal out loud instead of waiting to find out. The Farm Bureau line names 3 wildlife hosts in South Texas, and it is worth being clear about why the hog is the one that gets named in headlines. White-tailed deer and exotic game are hunted, surveyed, counted on aerial transects, and in many cases managed inside high fence areas on private ranches with somebody responsible for them. Feral swine are managed by nobody. They breed year-round. They range across property lines that mean nothing to them, and they occupy country that is not surveyed at all. Deer and exotic game populations can at least be surveyed. Nobody has ever managed to put a reliable ceiling on the hogs, and the number attached to them is the part that makes officials uneasy, because the American population is not a small one. Feral swine root up crop fields and pasture until the ground looks like it was worked by machine. They kill lambs, goat kids, and newborn calves. They foul stock ponds and creek crossings that livestock drink from. They damage levees, fences, and road shoulders. The Natural Resources Conservation Service put annual damage and control costs as high as $3.4 billion in 2026. While other figures cited by the Department of Agriculture land closer to $1.6 billion, depending on what gets counted and how. Feral swine are also known to carry more than 30 diseases and parasites that threaten livestock, wildlife, and people. All of that was already true before a fly turned up in Zavala County. The screwworm did not create the feral hog problem. It attached a deadline to it. So the answer is to remove them, and every state with hogs has been trying to do exactly that for years. The trap in the infrared photo is the current best answer, and the shape of that trap, the camera on the post, the phone in somebody's hand, all of it comes down to one specific way that hog removal fails. The Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, the agency inside the Department of Agriculture that runs federal feral swine work, has a primary field tactic with a name: whole sounder removal. A sounder is a family group, usually built around 2 adult sows and their young, and it can run from a handful of animals up to about 30. The doctrine is that the whole group goes at once, using bait, cameras, and a remote-triggered corral trap, rather than taking a few animals and scattering the rest across the property. That is the working method of a national program rather than trapping forum folklore or a manufacturer's sales pitch, and it runs under the National Feral Swine Damage Management Program, which Congress funded the agency to establish in 2014. The reason for the rule is what happens when the rule gets broken. If part of the sounder is standing outside the panel when the gate drops or the trap closes badly and animals force their way out, the survivors do not wander off and resume feeding as though nothing happened. They avoid that trap. Often they avoid traps in general, and they stay that way. Mississippi State University Extension and the multi-institution wild pig resources run by the Extension Network describe the same outcome in the same terms. The site is compromised for future work, and the animals that learned the lesson are still on the property, still breeding, and now considerably harder to catch than they were the week before. Catching most of a sounder is not a partial success. It is a setback, and it is one a landowner may not be able to undo on that piece of ground. That claim deserves the obvious objection because it sounds generous toward a pig. These are farm animals gone wild. How much can one actually learn, and how long could it possibly remember? The research is less comfortable than the assumption. Sus scrofa, the same species living wild in 35 states, performs well on complex maze and object discrimination tasks, requiring spatial memory and learning, and this has been tested repeatedly in peer-reviewed work, including a 2020 study in Scientific Reports on Early Life Socialization and Cognition, and a peer-reviewed comparative review published under the title Thinking pigs. In at least one long-term study, individual pigs successfully navigated mazes they had not encountered in over 3 years. Those experiments were run on domestic and research pigs rather than on wild feral populations specifically, and that distinction is real and should not be smoothed over. What the work establishes is capacity. This is an animal that can carry a spatial lesson for years, which is why a federal agency wrote its removal doctrine around never teaching one, so the operational problem has a hard shape. Every animal in the group has to be inside the panel before the gate moves. There is effectively no second attempt at that site if the count is wrong. And the person responsible for the decision is usually asleep 40 miles away or working a different property when the hogs finally come in. Hogs feed at night on their own schedule, not on a trapper's. That combination is what the equipment exists to solve. The current generation of corral traps pairs the panel with a live streaming trap camera and a mobile app. Several commercial systems are built around exactly that arrangement. A high-tech corral trap tied to a camera feeding a phone, so an operator sitting in a truck or at a kitchen table can watch the bait site in real time, count the animals standing inside the ring, and trigger the gate remotely only once the entire sounder is confirmed in frame. Others attack the same problem with a wireless digital camera that sends photo alerts of trap activity over the cellular network, so the operator can be notified of what has walked into the trap, then drop the gate by cell phone from wherever they happen to be. Strip the camera and the app off any remote-triggered trap, and what remains is a cage on a timer, which catches whatever happens to be standing in it. Without a live count of the whole group, the operator is guessing, and a guess is precisely what produces the trap-shy survivors that federal doctrine is written to prevent. That is why there is a camera on the post at all, and it is most of why the setup costs what it does. If you own ground in one of those 35 states and you have watched a group of hogs go from casual to invisible after one bad night at a feeder, you already know this behavior from the wrong side of it. Tell me the state and the county in the comments. I read all of them. There is a second problem the camera cannot solve, which is finding the sounder in the first place. Bottomland hardwood, cane thickets, and coastal marsh will absorb a family group across thousands of acres, and a control crew can burn weeks on a property without ever learning where the animals bed down or which creek they cross at dusk. The answer to that one has a name too: the Judas technique. A hog is captured, fitted with a GPS collar, and released back into the wild, and its movements are then tracked, because a social animal returning to its own kind will lead a tracker straight to the group it belongs to. The University of Georgia's Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resources and the state's feral swine program have documented what that looks like in practice. In one case, researchers followed a single collared pig for one day, and it led them to 24 others. Setting the approach up on a property costs a landowner roughly $8,000, most of it the one-time price of the traps and the collar. Notice what the collar is actually buying. It is not buying a dead hog. The collared animal gets released alive, on purpose, into country where it will do more damage before anyone catches up to it, because the group it walks back to is worth more than the individual. Every piece of this apparatus, the camera, the app, the collar, the $10,000 panel, is an answer to the same constraint. The whole family group has to go at once, and there is no reliable way to try twice. That constraint was expensive but survivable when the only thing at stake was a torn-up hayfield. It reads differently in a year when the country has an active outbreak of a parasite that was gone for 6 decades. Which is where the number in the infrared photo stops being abstract. In the last week of February 2026, Caddo Parish, Louisiana put a new corral trap into the field, built to take 20 to 30 hogs in a single drop at a cost to the parish of roughly $10,000. That is one trap in one parish in one state, bought out of a local budget that also has to cover roads and drainage. There are hogs in at least 35 states. 35 is the number worth sitting with, because it means this is no longer a Texas story or a Deep South story. Caddo Parish is in the northwest corner of Louisiana, up against the Texas and Arkansas lines. Georgia is running statewide programs. Texas is running loan programs and county bounties. Those are the places with named budgets and press releases attached, which is not the same as the places with hogs. The hogs are ahead of the paperwork, the way they have been the entire time, and the outbreak in Zavala County sits inside the same range map. Georgia has been running several programs at once through 2026. The state legalized drone-based hog hunting and relaxed the related license rules, which puts a thermal camera in the air over a property and compresses days of scouting into an evening. The Hog Down Awards program continues through June 30th, 2027, awarding hog traps worth roughly $3,500 each to randomly selected participants on a quarterly basis. And in March of 2026, the state launched a separate program that lets Georgia landowners rent top-tier hog traps rather than buy them, because the equipment that works costs more than most properties can justify owning. Texas runs the same logic at a larger scale. A state smart trap loan program lets landowners borrow traps worth $7,000 to $8,000 apiece to remove hogs alive, and individual counties maintain their own hog control bounty pools, one of them cited at roughly $38,000 a year. Loaner traps, rental traps, award traps, bounty pools. Every one of those programs exists for the same reason, which is that the equipment capable of taking a whole sounder costs more than any single landowner will spend on what used to be filed under nuisance, and the states worked that out years before a parasite gave them a second reason to care. The arithmetic behind those programs is not complicated. A landowner looking at a $10,000 corral trap and a few $1,000s a year in torn-up pasture will not buy the trap and cannot really be blamed for it. A state looking at a damage figure in the billions will buy the trap or lend it or raffle it, because the same purchase that never pays for itself on one property pays for itself immediately across a county. That is why hog control across the South has turned into a public equipment program, and it is why the traps in these photographs tend to belong to a parish, an extension office, or a state agency, rather than to the person standing next to them. Then the fly came back, and the arithmetic changed again. As recently as the first week of August 2026, the weekly pig industry report from the trade outlet The Pig Site was carrying the same fear in real time, tied directly to the running American case count. 6 million feral swine are seen as likely to make screwworm eradication significantly harder and significantly more expensive if the parasite reaches them. The reason is mechanical rather than dramatic. Sterile fly releases and wound treatment work on animals that can be found, counted, and handled. And feral swine are the opposite of that on every count. They move at night across property lines and county lines, through bottomland nobody surveys. They do not get inspected. A wound on a feral hog in a Louisiana marsh is not going to be treated by anyone, and the fly that finds it does not need permission to lay eggs in it. And the one tool that reliably removes those animals from the ground is a $10,000 corral trap that only works if nobody has spooked the group first. That is the concern on the record, and it is worth ending on exactly what is known and what is not. No agency has confirmed new World Screwworm in a feral hog in the United States. The named officials are describing a risk, not a finding, and anyone telling you otherwise is ahead of the evidence. What is documented is an active outbreak that began with one calf in Zavala County on June 3rd a control method that depends on reaching every infested animal, a peer-reviewed record of wild pigs carrying this parasite in another country, and 6 million animals across 35 states that nobody can reach on purpose. Which returns the story to the infrared frame, a ring of pale metal in a dark field, a dozen animals eating corn inside it, and a camera on a post watching them for somebody who is not there. It photographs like a good night's catch, and it is one. It is also the only part of this that anyone actually controls. The outbreak is active. The population is uncontained. Nobody yet knows which of those two facts ends up being the larger one, and the gate on that trap drops the same way tonight either way. If you want the other half of this story, how these animals got so big and spread so far in the first place, that one is on the channel.